43210. We're live, but we're not going to start yet.
Okay.
Let me make sure everything's okay, and give some people time to get in. Maybe another drink of coffee will help.
Right, this is quite nice because you don't see all the comments coming up. I'm sure you do see it.
You can. I think on your screen.
It's fine. I'll just get distracted. So it's probably.
If you look to the right, though, there should be like a little icon there. If you click it, you'll be able to see comments. You see?
Yeah, I think I can. Yeah, it's got see all. I'm going to leave it off, otherwise I'll get really incoherent. It's been super interesting since I connected with you. Massive download. So this will be interesting because I'm getting a nudge that I can share stuff that I haven't been able to up until now.
Really? Okay. This is going to be.
Well, we'll see. It might be nothing.
No,
I can build it up.
I can tell you. I can already tell this is going to be interesting. So, we're going to have to back up a little bit and explain some things because I don't even remember, to be honest with you. So let's welcome some people, and we got 40 people in the house, 41 people. Thank you for your continued love and support and contributions to keep us going. We're 100% viewer supported, and we're getting real close to doing our independent website and stream, but I won't talk about it. But it's getting real close. So anyway, let me welcome Patricia Satchwell. Michael Fox is in the house. Mariana Teopira from New Zealand. Kim Longo, Diane McLaughlin, Naveen Kazar is here. Long time no see. Linda Winger, Maurice Firgal, Alinka Sandhu, Mary Cooper's always here. Elaine Cooper, Sirina, Bear from Holland, Paulette Ball, Glenn Ray's here from down in New Zealand. Beautiful lady. Suzanne Nanuet. I'm getting pretty good with these names. Carol George from Scotland. Francis Conlon, Yvonne McGee, Ann Beryl Cox, Irina Costa, Jennifer Sampson, Delia Flores, Manar Kasim, Andis Manar, Dawn Alexander. Dawn Alexander, is she related to you?
No, she's not. She's actually in Scotland too. She's a friend.
Okay, so here, let's welcome everybody. This is a special spontaneous edition of Soul Speaks 5D with our beautiful friend here, Gillian Alexander, right? Mm-hmm. And she is from Scotland, and she's a truth speaker. I guess it's the same thing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So you were talking about ever since we connected, some things have happened. I'm trying to remember what happened. I a lot of messages, and I remember we were talking, and I said, "Why don't you come on the show?"
Well, we weren't even talking. You just basically said, I watched. I'm trying to think back. I think it was somebody had commented on one of my live feeds. My live feeds are tiny by comparison to yours. I get a few people tuning in, and maybe about 200 in total watching. But then, so somebody actually who wasn't a friend had said, "Oh, Todd's been talking about this," and I started following that through. And I hadn't actually encountered you before, which is really interesting because once I did find your stuff, it's definitely the kind of stuff I would have been interested in normally anyway. So it was interesting in itself. And one of the things I really liked, you might laugh at this, was how normal things were. On, sort of just when I was looking at some of the stuff, the way you speak, it's all just normal. And I really, really kind of appreciated that because that's been part of what's been unfolding with me in terms of this is my world, but it's not been the world I've been existing in all my life because that's not the world that we're conditioned into existing in. So anyway, and then I sent you a message just because I'm feeling really strongly now that we should be all collecting together if we're heading in the same direction. And I kind of reckoned you were one of the good guys, so contacted you. I just said, really want to just make some contact with you. And the next thing you said, "Oh, come on my show." So that was quite interesting.
But see, I do everything on, intuitively. I guess. I mean, I have to say that. I have to own that. That's my universe. But so what happens is, yeah, it's okay to talk about this. So what happens is, I don't talk to people, not because I don't want to, but I just can't. I can't talk to people. I don't have the time to talk to people. My friends will tell you what few, I have. They'll tell you, he won't return messages. He won't call. And so what I'll do is, if somebody interesting hits me in the right moment, and a lot of people do, they just say, I would just like to talk to you. Can we just chat? And God, I feel bad. I don't ever say no, but one thing that I've done a few times, not very many, is I'll say, why don't we just do a show?
Mm-hmm.
Because to me, you were talking about normal, and I'm not really into, I know what my mission is. I know what my role is in Soulogy, and as a partner in a divine union, I just know what I'm supposed to be doing. So that the whole, compliments are nice and everything, but don't get me wrong. But of the things people have said, for you to say normal, it's just normal. I like that. I think that's what it is. And I think that's what this is. That's why I said, why don't we just do a show together, and get to know each other on camera with all of our brothers and sisters and be normal.
Yeah. This is my idea of what's normal. It's not most people's, but anyway, yeah. So there's been lots since then, it's kicked off a load of stuff shifting, but there's been stuff shifting for, when I look back, it's never stopped shifting. Kind of been peaks and troughs, but it's, I don't think I was born for a quiet life. Yeah, it's funny because I did think into where, and I will own that was a thinking, where's useful for us to talk about. When I remember when I was a child, I knew I could fly. I knew I could change the nature of matter. I knew I could move things, and probably me as well. I can't really remember that, but I also knew there was a rule I couldn't do it, and I knew that I wasn't meant to tell adults about it. I remember, and I think I did. Yeah, I do remember a couple of times. I thought, you're a child, you do tell adults about it, and of course, adults are perfectly primed for that because, I can fly. As a small child, oh, that's nice, dear. You get the perfect response from adults, don't you? So they don't. So that was, I grew up in a magical world where that was all normal. I grew up on a farm, and I'd spend most of my time down in the fields playing with the fairies, and they were very real to me.
I was just going to ask you, you're okay. This is a great show. One, just your opinion. I'll keep going, but I just want to ask you a couple of things I don't want to forget. One, you're saying this about the flying and changing matter. And I'm getting chills, right? I mean, I'm like, okay. And I'm wondering, almost like memories want to pop in from when I was a kid. I wonder if many of us consciously have done that as children and it got wiped out somehow. And my second question is, did you ever see the fairies? But you already answered it.
I'm not visual, so I don't see things. I mean, I remember once, yeah. So I went, just really fast forward. So I then went into sciences and everything else through schooling, and prove things to me. Otherwise they don't exist. So I went really hardline science. I even got into God at one stage, but anyway, that's another story.
That's a normal path, don't you think?
No, I know. Yeah, well, I also joined the army at one stage too. So they've done some really weird things.
But when you were a kid, you weren't visual either. You went to the
field? I don't know. I can't. I'm not sure. This is what some of the stuff that's been unfolding, and this was even before I started speaking.
So you could feel the presence of the fairies.
Oh yeah. Well. Yes, but I didn't. It's that old one that because you know it, you think everybody does know it, and then it's very susceptible to being told it's not real. So I don't.
And that's what I mean. And I wonder if that's what happened. If that was part of the mind.
I'm sure we got that. I'm sure we got that.
Just because, but and I just want to point this out too, because I really try to make sure that we address people that are just waking up. People tend not to give themselves a lot of enough credit. So I'm just going to say, you know, I see some things visually, third eye and with these two eyes. But for the most part, my clear ability is really feeling. And so I just want to tell people that might run into this, because they look at other people and go, oh my God, you can do this and you can do that. You know, I mean, it's a little bit of everything, and everybody's got all of it, but some people, some things are more.
Do you want to do a quick exercise with folks on that? Because I've got a really simple exercise I use in my workshops.
Yeah. Oh, you do workshops?
Yeah. So this might be quite useful for it's just a really good one to tune in.
Yeah.
So if folks listening want to just gently rest their eyes closed, we're just going to do a quick test, working with what you sense with. Okay. So bearing in mind, if you've got a thing against gorillas, just let it go. Okay. Because you just, with your eyes closed, just imagine you can see a gorilla sitting in front of you or standing in front of you. It's wearing a pink tutu and a purple bowler hat. So just notice if you can see it immediately. Okay. This is a friendly gorilla, and you like gorillas for the purposes of this exercise, and it holds its hand out to shake your hand. Just notice if you can feel its hand in your hand. And then notice if you can hear gorilla breath. And then notice if you can smell gorilla must. And notice if you can taste gorilla must on your tongue. Okay, and then just let this process go. It's a really very sort of simple, crude exercise.
Wow, that is cool.
Sensories, because I can't see the gorilla. I just don't see any gorilla.
I can see it. I could do it.
There'll be some people. When I do this in a workshop, you can see, even I usually ask people to raise their hands if they see it, or if they smell it, taste it, whatever. But you can see people's reactions immediately if they see it, because usually the people who see it was like this, because the gorilla's there.
So okay, so now so you grew up in Scotland, right?
No, I grew up on the border of Wales and England. My father farmed a farm that literally went down to the border of the Welsh border of where it was on the English side of the Welsh border. Yeah. It was in a little pocket called Flintshire, which used to hop between England and Wales at different times when the border changed. Yeah. And it was a kingdom on its own, I think, at one stage. So
man, that whole place over there is just.
This is down by Wales. Yeah. No,
I mean, I'm just saying all the UK pretty much is a lot of portals all over, a lot of magic.
Oh, there's massive stuff there. And this is what's really interesting for me now. I'm almost certainly, later this year, I'm moving away from Scotland after 35 years here. So it's a big deal. And I'm almost certainly moving back down to where I grew up. And I thought there was quite a lot of resistance coming up in me. And I thought that was to do with going back to family sort of stomping grounds and stuff like that. And the sort of, our family, I come from a long line of hoarders, so we keep stuff. But it's not just that. There's just so much non-physical stuff as well. And I thought that was why I was sort of resistant to going there. The place I'm going back to makes utter sense practically.
And you're actually going back not just to the place you were raised, but even like the house or the neighborhood?
No, it's actually, yeah, I don't want to say too much because it hasn't been 100% agreed.
Is it a castle? What, you have a castle?
No, we don't all live in castles here.
So you went to
but the thing about that, where I'm going back to, I suddenly realized why I was so resistant. It's an absolute myriad of crisscross ley lines. So it's the energy that I'm sort of, because I won't be able to hide there.
Okay.
I've been quite.
This is why I love this show. One of the reasons you're going to have to explain this to me, because I don't know a lot of stuff, to be honest with you. I mean, like, people come on here and talk about stuff. I'm not, so I have a question here, because I got to assume other people do. Okay, so you say there's a lot of ley lines crisscrossing there, right? Mm-hmm. Where you're going to be moving back to, and because of that, you won't be able to hide, right? So can you explain to us what happens when a bunch of ley lines are crisscrossing? And
I'm not the person to answer that, Todd. I can tell you experientially, but I can't tell you the sort of any stuff.
But you won't be able to hide. So does that mean that when there's ley lines crisscrossing, that things are amplified, or there's more magic?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, one of the reasons I shut down, I shut down when I was probably about 10. I mean, really shut down, really shut down. Yeah. And I didn't open myself back up again until my son was 8. So that would be, I'd been about 31, 32 at that stage. And so from 10 to, so from that time, from 10 till I was about 30, I think it probably would have been about 32, I was completely shut down. I was functioning. Everybody else, I probably looked like I was normal to everybody else. But when I was a child,
what happened when you woke up at 31, 32? What happened? Was there something that happened?
But it's just so before and after. So why I shut down was because I was intensely sensitive, and particularly around about the land. And, in those days, I mean, that's a long time ago. So farming was very, very different. And my father was a very sensitive soul anyway. And he was very sensitive to the land. I'm pretty certain, that's not just seeing it through rose-tinted memories. One of his favorite sayings was, live as if you'll die tomorrow, farm as if you farm forever. He was really sensitive to sort of caring, sort of caretaking the land. But even then, I was just super sensitive to what was happening in the land. And I'm sure that was partly to do with the nature of the energies around about there. You were just plugged in. One of my favorite things to do as a kid, I mean, I've got a really weird body in terms of reactions to electricity and stuff. Electric fences were my favorite thing to hang on to when I was a kid. And you just get a mild buzz off them. It just felt nice.
Are you a masochist or what? I'm kidding. I'm joking.
I mean,
no, I can tell you. I
accidentally held on to, sort of cables. Accidentally plugged myself into households. Sort of, and we've got higher voltage in the UK than you have there. Quite a lot, I think. I think it's about double or nearly double. And I should have been thrown across the room with it, but no. I'm sitting there thinking, what's that bzzz noise? I didn't even realize what I was doing. So I've got a really weird body in terms of taking a lot of energy through it. And obviously in that case, electricity. So what happened? So yes, in the sort of meantime, I did school and university and sort of normality and as best I could. I've never probably looked, sort of really been normal, but I looked like I was normal. But I was also dead. When I woke up, or sort of, well, it wasn't really waking up because I don't know why I sort of came back to life again. I looked at my son the one day and he was a great kid. I looked at him, I thought, I'm feeding you, keeping you safe, clothed, all that kind of stuff, but I can't actually feel love for you. And I thought he was a really switched on kid. And I thought...
You said yourself, you can't really feel love for
him. I recognized I couldn't feel love for him because I couldn't feel any emotions at that stage. None. So I didn't get all the sort of pain that comes with feeling emotions, but I also didn't get any of the sort of good, sort of what we class as good. Anyway, I just looked at him and I thought, he's going to recognize that his mother doesn't love him. I need to sort this out. So I then started going to, I've always had that kind of life where things pop up when I need them. And bizarrely, they started offering counselling at my work. I worked in the health service, but that's not the kind of thing you get as a perk in the health service at all. But they started doing this. So I went for counselling, and that's when things started opening up, and I just completely unravelled. I spent about 10 years. Pardon?
Did you have like a breakdown or what?
Yeah, I probably was start raping.
We've all been there.
Oh no, I mean, I was quite impressive. I mean, I'd be bashing my head on door frames trying to crack it open. I was good.
I did too. I just did it in private. I didn't let anybody see that kind of behavior, but I did do a lot of stuff. I said I did the same type of stuff. I just didn't let anybody see it.
No, well, neither did I. I mean, now I don't see any point in making a secret because that just, sort of sidelines everybody else who's going through similar. And it took me a long time after that to recognize it as a spiritual awakening. But this is where I find it fascinating, because where in our culture do we have any support for spiritual awakening? Really, no. In our mainstream culture.
You can do it here. we can make a claim for that. But you know, that's very true. That really is. And I wonder now too, because I had a family member who's since passed, who I spent many years with, that was diagnosed, you know, with a mental affliction, schizophrenia and chronic depression, right? Mm-hmm. And you know, so I studied a lot. Just, you know, on the internet and for a long time. And I was amazed, because I think at that point, which was like in the early 90s, I'm going to say, or mid 90s, there were 5 personality disorders and 3 mental disorders in the entire scope of everything. Now, I looked it up later, like 10 years later, and they've expanded some stuff, but I was amazed at 5,000, 6,000 years of recorded history that, you know, and this was before I woke up, but I was just like, we don't even know what this is. I mean, we can't even get our arms around it. So I think spiritual awakening, for people that I can look back on in my family, and stories even that were handed down about particular relatives that were considered, you know, off planet, they were having spiritual awakenings is what was happening. They were seeing the fairies, they were seeing galactics, or whatever the case was, right?
Well, that's the thing. If you're visual, I don't know what you do with that. You know, if you're seeing all this stuff. I mean, I've always been surrounded by dead people, but I didn't kind of even notice it. It's much easier to ignore them if you don't see them. Yeah. And I've never really been someone to hear either. Very occasionally I'll see stuff and I get super excited, but what I used to get smells, and I still very occasionally get smells, but I used to get them a lot then, but I've no idea how to interpret them at all. I mean, there were always things like gas leaks, you know, gas in houses that didn't have gas, or cat pee in houses that didn't have cats. It was always unpleasant things. I don't know what that was about. But I started to be able to interpret the feeling things. And that was probably when I started doing Reiki, actually, to be fair. I mean, when I started getting into any of this stuff, I was definitely sort of coming from the science perspective. Yeah. I did sciences at school. My first degree was in biochemistry. My second degree was a master's in public health medicine. You know, sort of all through work in the health service, I was working with evidence-based care. So it's all about sort of evidence research, you know, science stuff. I see now. I see the sort of science approach is really helpful. I think the skepticism of scientists is really, really helpful. Otherwise, you're off with the unicorns and the fairies, you know, unicorns and the fluffy bunnies. I don't know, flying fluffy bunnies, obviously. I know
people that live with unicorns.
No, I know, but what I mean.
I know, I'm kidding. I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
You see that they're not unicorns. To me, are actually quite mundane beasts. They're not actually, you know, they are, you know, they're not. I mean, I think they're seen as elementals, aren't they? You know, so they're not. Yeah. But they're not off there somewhere.
No.
So yeah, I've also got links to Pegasus as well. But anyway,
so but the skepticism. You're talking about the skepticism. You know.
Can I just complete one thing? See about the awakening. One of the things I find really amazing, actually, when I look back, is how every time I've needed something, it's always been there. So. You know, there is no support in our culture for spiritual awakening, but there's an amazing mental health service if you can actually access it. My experience has been an amazing mental health service. And, you know, I'd had the benefit of, I'd actually worked, you know, sort of sat on specialist working parties with the psychiatrist that I asked to go and see, you know, so I was right in the system, and I was in a really good position. Wow. Had an amazing psychologist who I actually asked for too. And this doesn't happen in the UK. We've got a fabulous system here, but because it's free at source, you don't get to say, okay, I want to go to this person or that person. But I managed to do that. And I knew the system, I knew how to work it. And I'd been on antidepressants. It's the only pills I'd ever taken. I've never been a pill person. I was never reared that way, and I'm just not wired that way. But I did take antidepressants because basically I needed something just as a buoyancy aid at that stage, and had quite a journey with them. So that then when I was actually diagnosed, well, this is, it was never put down in my notes, but basically I was diagnosed with bipolar at one stage. Because I'm classic symptoms of it. There's not a doctor in the land that would diagnose me with it now, but at that stage I was showing absolute florid symptoms of it.
Oh, I'm sure every one of us has had episodes of manic depression. Every single one of us. There's no doubt.
Yeah, but then they were you know, sort of threatening me with sodium valproate and everything, and it's horrible stuff. The most common prescription here is one called Depakote, and they fondly call it Depabloat. Yeah, but you know, it's just, and it's horrible. It's like a chemical cough.
No. I had, yeah, like I said, I had a family member, and they put her on. I forget what it was called, but it was basically a tranquilizer. Yeah, well, they're horrible things. She would take it. Yeah, she would take it at night. It would knock her out, and all day long she'd be in a zombie state, basically. Mm-hmm. So I managed to, you know, sort of negotiate my way out of any of that kind of stuff. I mean, my psychiatrist did actually say to me, he says, Gillian, he says, I know you just come here and tell me all the stuff that you need me to know to give you the answers you need to get. And I said, yeah. So he knew he was being worked. So that was fine. Yeah. But I knew at some stage that would stop, you know, it was serving me in some way or other, and it would stop serving me at some stage. And then it just was literally like a switch going, and it was like, no more. I think that's how a lot of this stuff is working for people. You know, people, you know, whatever it may be, whatever it could be, something they do, it could be something they ingest or smoke or drink. It could be a lot of things. But I'm seeing that with people. These things are just falling away, and it's not like they're having to try to do it. That's what you're talking. That's what you're saying. Well, yeah, no, I did do quite a lot to sort of support myself in that regard. There was a lot of stuff I did, but I also, sorry, go on. I was going to say, how did you get to where you are now? I mean, but when did you come out of everything? Well, what's your experience? What's that? Have I come out of everything? I think that happens when we stop breathing, isn't it? Right. Well, what I mean is, what's your experience now? The last few years, what are you seeing in the collective, in yourself, as far as what we call ascension, your own transformation? I mean, what are you seeing? What's going on? Well, this is the interesting thing. I don't think I look back, and I don't think it's ever been straightforward. And what happens is just layers and layers and layers start revealing themselves. And recently, this is where it gets weird, because, all right, wait a second. I'm just trying to, there's so many threads, and I'm trying to sort of pick one and just stay with it, or even just one that's vaguely related to the next. If I go back to my childhood, I mean, I'm talking about some, you know, sort of, I have vivid memories of being in the cot, and actually pretty much no childhood memories after that. It's a weird one. So, you know, and so I would have been about 1.5, 2 at the oldest, still being in the cot. Yeah, this is probably the weirdest I get, actually. So, okay. I used to have this recurring dream when I was in the cot, and it doesn't really matter the nature of the dream, but it was something about it was significant. And then even when I came out the cot, I remember being scared of the dark, and there was no rational reason for being scared of the dark. But, you know, when I got up to go to the toilet, I would sort of give my teddies magical powers so that they could protect me, all that kind of stuff. The unseen was actually much, much safer than the seen, always has been. Yeah, so, you know, then really fast forward. And so I never really thought much of that. In terms of sort of lines being crossed sexually, I was aware of, there was a retired teacher when I was 7, used to come back to visit the kids in the playground because he missed the children.
He'd kind of bribe us into his car, and because the car park, it was good old days where the car park was the children's playground. So he'd park his car in the corner, and, you know, bribe us all with sweets. I remember even at that age promising myself if I ever had children, I'd give them sweets. I was too much to say, oh, I'll have sweets. And of course, getting us on his lap, and then getting his hands in as far as he could get them. But it was happening to all the kids in the class. Well, all the girls in the class anyway. And so we kind of all huddled together. I didn't know what he was doing, but we all huddled together and then said, you know, does he do that to you? Do you like it? And then we all decided we didn't like it, and we'd all keep away from him apart from one girl, and we just couldn't tell her, you know, sort of convince her not to go there. But I think that was family stuff for her. Anyway, so there was that, but it was funny. It never really impacted me, that one. I'd completely forgotten about that. And I think there was one instance when I was a young adult that I think it was triggered, but that was about the only time. But fast forward again, I work with sexual trauma a lot, with, you know, people coming to me to get support to clear sexual trauma from their bodies. I do a lot of work with bodies, basically, hearing the stories of the bodies and then working with that. I kind of see all the signs and the sort of the language of the body, of other people's bodies, and I started looking at my own body, and there's things there that I know I'm not listening to, or I wasn't listening to.
What do you mean?
Just
when you say looking at the body, you're talking about energetically, right?
Yeah. Yes. Okay. But even visually as well.
Okay. But I mean, okay. Yeah. But I mean, behind the visual part of it is an energetic scan, basically.
Yeah. So, but even physical stuff is energetic, and visual stuff is energetic. So it's all energetic.
Yeah, of course. So when you have a patient, do you work on the patient in that way? I mean, do you scan their body in that way?
When I'm working with somebody, it's only when they give me permission. So it can even be, you know, sort of, I'm on
a show. I'll call you back. I'm on a show. Yeah. It's all right.
It can be, you know, it can be casually when I just encounter somebody that they've said, okay, whatever reason, it's like, actually, I need some help with this. And I will work with people in that instance if it feels like, okay, this is my window of opportunity to work with this person. So it's not always clients.
Now, do you get any type of download from working with somebody or information about it?
Explain how it works, but it's I have once had that, and it was bizarre because it was the only time I've ever had, I would say visual, but it gets complicated because I see visuals. I see visuals through feeling them. It's like I'll feel red, I'll feel green, and there's a difference in how I feel them. So it's, for me, it's quite sort of woven together. It's not the way most people see things. I once had this with a new client. But I've only ever had this once, and it turned out to be a client I worked with over years. But it was when, in their first session, it was like a sort of slideshow of things that happened. And there were some of them I was thinking, I was thinking, I hope I've got that one wrong. And all of them unfolded to be truth. But it was quite interesting watching that. So normally I don't. Normally I just get this sense of somebody. I can only really explain it by their reflection back to me. It's like if I'm sort of working with somebody, and I'll just say, okay, you've got something going on to the left of your right knee. And they'll go, how on earth do you know that? Because I can feel it in my own body sometimes. Or mostly I don't actually get the feelings in my own body. I just get a sense of it. It's just I know where to go. It's the best way I can describe it. And then when I'm working with somebody, it's almost like I go inside their body and sort of just work with it in there. I can't really explain it in normal human language, but
well, I think all that stuff we can't. I think all that stuff we try to we can't.
The way I work is almost certainly shamanic. You know, it's what we used to, you know, sort of what the old healers used to use. On that note, it's quite interesting because the language started coming back through me maybe about 3 or 4 years ago.
How did that start?
Well, this is and it's interesting because I've heard a lot of your, the folks you've had on your show talking about light language. It's not light language. I know it's not light language, although I think some people might call it that, but it's not. I know it's not light language. To me, it's the language of the old ways.
So it's an ancient language.
Well, it's the language of the old ways, and the problem was it was distorted and misused, so it was banished.
Yeah.
And it's only now it feels like it's time for it to come back and be used in the right way.
Well, I was going to say there seems to be quite a few different dialects.
Yes.
Of what people call light language or star language. I'm with you.
This is not star language. This is definitely earth language, and it's the language of the old ways, as best I can come up with. And then it was basically distorted into the language of dark arts, and that's not black magic. It's different. It's the language of dark arts. I had a lot of clients coming to me with
what's the difference between language of
it's just definitely I keep getting no, that's not the right word, or that's the right word. Mm-hmm. I got a lot of clients coming to me for a spell. That was the wrong word. Maybe it wasn't meant to be a pun. Who had old, very dark contracts on them, sort of on their souls, and very dark agreements, and some really quite icky energies entangled up with them. So I did a lot of clearing with that, and it's really interesting, this talk, because I haven't actually shared a lot of this stuff with anybody, but I've certainly if I have shared it, it's been with very small numbers, 2 or 3 people. I'm pretty sure that my soul lineage is one of the dark lineages, but that's not to be judged. It's basically...
What does that mean?
I don't know. Just let me explain. Can I hop forward slightly? Because I need to qualify that. Now is a time of unity. It's why I'm not keen on all the sort of division between male, female, like right, wrong, all that kind of stuff. I just don't buy it. It's not what's real. I don't even buy into it, good and evil. Because now is a time of coming together and wholeness and unity. So we need to sit in circle. We need to bring all of these banished parts of ourselves back. Yeah. So it's not about sitting in judgment on anything anymore. It's time now to start bringing all of these things back. You cage a tiger, it'll snarl, and it's probably going to be fairly vicious when it comes out. Doesn't mean the tiger's bad.
I'm with you on that.
It just
I'm totally with you on that. I'm just out of curiosity.
I know you are, and this is one of the things that I find interesting with your approach. It was part of the reason I contacted you first, because I actually feel it's really important now that we do actually, we are still moving in the same direction. So a lot of these old contracts, I know them because this was my way. So a lot of these old dark contracts, I'm able to clear them because I know that language. Mm-hmm. And there's definitely be some big karmic clear for me, that stuff that I've been working with, I don't have to work with anymore. Thank goodness.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I know that, energetically speaking, okay. I've always known who I am, or whatever, ever since I was little, my heart, whatever you want to call it, my light. But as time went on, as I started to, over the last, started 7-8 years ago, I started to understand that, in a metaphoric way, and maybe not, I went to the depths of hell, because I had to go to the depths of hell in order to be able to do what you do. In other words, whatever length you went to in the dark was with the purpose of being able to heal that in others and yourself, or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe. It's funny. I don't really see the need to have explanations for things, which is weird considering, my science background, and I used to have an obsession with analyzing everything. So I think I just got that out of my system. So I don't need to have understandings of things. I don't really need to have explanations for things. They just are, and they're another experience. But yeah, so the language thing's really interesting. And the other thing I'm finding quite interesting around about the different types of language and stuff, My sense is that it's the same thing, but it's just we just perceive it differently. So they might sound drastically different, but actually, do they feel the same, or do we sense them as the same? And if so, then they are the same.
I don't know. I mean, I've heard. I mean, Morgan speaks about. I've heard her speak 8 or 10 different ones. She won't do it on camera, but I can tell the different dialects. Now, I've heard enough people do it on the show and in my work. I can actually recognize when somebody's talking like somebody else does. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I think it all, obviously everything goes back to the one. So obviously it all goes back to the same thing. I think it has more to do with the vibratory part or aspect of the whole thing, the sound and where it comes from. I think that's a big part of it, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was doing some really strong work with, it was me and 2 others. We were bringing just real knock your socks off stuff. And I just asked them, did you see the pyramid? And we all saw the same pyramid, but different ways completely. Yeah, so, and it was the same pyramid, but it was just, we were seeing, and it wasn't like just from a different side. It was utterly different.
Yeah, my son told me something a few years back when he was about 16 or 17, and I was waking up, and he was already woke up, and he said, what I'm seeing and what you're seeing are 2 different things. He said, so if we're in a room and there's a table there, and I say that table's green, and I say, yeah, that table's green, but he said, well, how do you know my green's the same as your green?
Yeah, of course it is.
And I was just like, oh yeah, you know what? There's something here. This kid's 16 telling me this, but yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
So on the language, the earth language, I like that. And I think you're right. But in the earth language, how did that come to you? Did it come with a message, or you just woke
No, I started sensing it. And then, I mean, I remember somebody saying to me I'd be using voice in my sessions probably about 15 years ago. And I just looked at them like they're insane, or at least had 18 heads. Because to me, sound is like sort of singing, and I am notoriously tone deaf. I just try and sing something and I think it's fine, but apparently I go off key into about 8 different keys. So that never made sense to me, but I don't know. I started doing toning, but I can't. I've tried teaching toning. I can't teach toning because that basically what I'm doing is I'm tuning into the person I'm working with. I need something to tune into.
Yeah.
Actually, sort of be able to tone with them, and I found that really useful tool to work with.
So when you work with people, you're doing some type of energetic scan.
I don't think it's organized.
Huh?
I sometimes just go on a soul journey with them. It's just like, okay, what do you need? I just have a chat with their soul, basically. I can't really explain it better than that.
Can you do it now with me? No, I'm just trying to get an understanding of what you do.
I know.
And do you do it? Do you do it online or only in person?
Well, I started incorporating bits like that because I've suddenly had the green light to be able to put like this into my live feeds. And it's funny, the language keeps coming through. Are you okay if I just...
And that's why you're going back home, too. You know that, right?
Koi kirai kai, koi kirai kai, koi kai kirai kai, koi 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 kai kirai kai, koi kai, koi kirai kai, kirai koi ki, koi kirai kai, koi kirai kai, kirai kai, koi kirai. So yeah, often I'll just speak to somebody because this gets past their head. And it's really interesting. So I'll just see the recognition on people's faces. They've never, you know, their mind will tell them they've never heard the language before, but their body recognizes it.
Well, the one that you're speaking, okay? Because I mean, I've never thought about this before, but the one that you're speaking, I've heard a lot of people do, and I don't mean that to diminish it at all. What I actually mean is,
speak back to.
I actually think that is more of, like you said, like an earth language. There's something about it that's rooted in the earth. Now, I've heard other ones that absolutely sound galactic from specific star systems. You know, I can tell you, like Honey Borden the other day when she did the Arcturians, the Syrians, the Pleiadians, you could tell, you could feel. But and then other people, but that the way you were talking there, that I've heard quite a bit, and that does seem to be some type of like I don't know, like primitive religion or early culture, Aboriginal, that type of thing.
Yeah, but right, okay. You remember the story of the Tower of Babel or Tower of Babel?
Oh my God, I was just going to bring that up to you. God. Tell us the story.
I'm in your head now. No, to me, it's that time now. It's time for it to come back again, because to me, I know the story goes that, you know, it was sort of, you know, all the different languages were broken.
But explain, look, because I just, that actually popped in my head earlier, and I did see a couple of things on it over the last couple of weeks when I was cruising on YouTube, but I don't have a lot of patience. But I got the basics of the story, but why don't you tell us the backdrop, tell us the story, and then what your perspective on it is.
All my stories are very, very simplified. So, you know, the people it was an incredibly successful community, doing great, very successful. And they all decided, okay, we're going to celebrate how successful and powerful we are. And we're going to build a tower that's going to reach right up to the heaven. And anyway, so God looked down, as God does, didn't like this much at all, thought they were getting a bit uppity, and smote that tower. And as the tower fell, all the different, the different languages were born. So basically fractured all the language. My sense is, it's really interesting when you watch all these stories coming up round about, sort of in different cultures, they all echo in different cultures. And my sense is that was not about, well, it's not about different languages being born, because have you ever had a conversation in English with another English speaker? No clue what they're saying. To me, it's that subtlety of confusion in language, of communication. So it's at that level, not at sort of, you speak French, I speak, Sort of
they don't have different roots.
It's much more subtle than that. Yeah. I've had a conversation with my Japanese friend before now, and I do not speak any Japanese at all, and I could still understand her. She was speaking Japanese, I was speaking English, and obviously she spoke good English, but I could still understand her Japanese. We can understand each other past language, but more often than not, the confusion comes in the subtleties of communication, not in the language itself. So that's one thing, but my sense is, right, so this, I think it goes back to the very beginning, and it's way back before primitive sort of earth cultures. It certainly wasn't primitive. This might be useful. This is around about sexuality and when basically it all fragmented. What I've got with this, it feels like it was a pre-Atlantean. It was an Atlantean-like culture, but it was a pre-Atlantean culture. Sex magic used to be. It was for the greater good. But it was at the same time they started sort of. I was about to say buggering around with, but that was the sex magic piece. But anyway, with they started messing with the crystals and making, sort of new and improved synthetic crystals, which of course they weren't. I think elements of that came from the right way. They really genuinely thought they were improving things, but they were completely deluded. They'd forgotten, what was what. So at the same time that was happening, they started doing experiments with sex magic, and I see people now still that are sort of from those lineage of those three groups. One was the group being experimented on, one was those doing the experimenting, and there was a group of observers.
Now you say this was in a pre-Atlantean?
Well, it's certainly an Atlantean-like culture. Every time I tune in, I get not Atlantis, but it was an Atlantean-like culture.
because I'm just trying to understand. So what you're saying is there was 3 groups there, and some of us carry those memories, I guess, stronger than others, and even the.
Let me tell the story, Todd, and I think it'll make more sense then, and then I can kind of fill bits in between, if that's okay. So, because what I see in people, so the group that was being experimented on, and my sense is they agreed to be experimented on, but part of that deal was they actually got implants that knocked out free will. And then they were experimenting because they carry that. I've seen people in this here and now still carry those. When I'm working with somebody and they're trying their best, but they cannot get there, I usually look for one of those implants and clear that first. And it's just like night and day then. So, and it was all up the anus because there's an activation point at the base of the spine. You know where the spine goes down and then it comes back and then there's coccyx. Okay, so the tailbone. Just at the step there's an activation point there. It's why anal sex is so potent because basically the head of the penis just hits at the back of the spine just there. They were experimented on. I still see the implants in people. So the first implant of those who were experimented on, and people might have been in both groups, but the first one is usually this. It's like a skull cap on the inside of the skull, and usually if I'm working with somebody,
you're talking about an implant. That's a specific implant you've seen on more than one person from this story, from this time and space in our. My
sense is that's where it came in originally, but it's not just there. Go ahead. Yeah, so there's the ones on the inside. It's like a lining on the inside of the skull. Some people, and so basically, I'll just work with people and I'll say, okay, where are you sensing it? Because what I want to do is get them so they can see it, and once they can see it, it's the teddy bear with the lights on. Suddenly they can clear it themselves. And best to clear it themselves because then they can keep clearing it as they need to. Anyway, so that's the first one to clear because you can't work on anything else before that. Usually, if that's there, then there'll be an implant at the base. At the base of the spine first, the one I spoke about, and it's usually in people who carry a lot of sexual power. And it's either blocking their sexual power or it's kind of got a tap on it and allowing that sexual power to be siphoned off, or both. And then once we've cleared that, and usually I'll usually get them to clear it because if they can clear it themselves, it's got to be best because if it comes back again, they can clear it again. And then there's usually one at the top of the spine, where it comes but into the bottom of the neck.
With a little bump.
If there's one at the bottom of the spine, there's usually one at the top of the spine. The other one that you'll sometimes find is in the base of the skull, just, at the base of the skull going up into the brain. My sense is all of these ones came in and they were created through use of language when they first came in. What I sometimes see in people it's like adaptations of that. I'm not going to say alien adaptations of that. They don't make much sense to me, but I know what they look like or what they feel like. So I'll usually ask people if I can feel there's something there, and they're saying no. I'll just ask them. It usually feels like it's metallic with tendrils going up into the base of the base of the brain. And if people have got those, they know it. And those ones usually I haven't found a way to actually release them other than just pull them out. Yeah. But again, if they can pull them out themselves, it's best. So, yeah, that's the sort of the pattern usually with that one. And what I've seen, the patterns kind of, the behavioural patterns that that crop up now times is that, somebody who's been in the experimenting group will so find somebody who's been experimented on, and it's just like they just pick them up where they left off because the loop is still there. You'll see, sort of, I'm sure everybody's been in those situations. It's like, what on earth is going on here? Because you're not even attracted to the person, but it's almost like there is, that you can't say no. And I can't think what the other the sort of time I've definitely been aware of that cropping up again. My great grandmother was a founder member of the Golden Dawn.
What's that?
And I may or may not have picked this up right, but I'm pretty sure I have. What's the Golden Dawn? Was one of the secret societies in Victorian England. It was, the theory of it was, it started to look into the sort of it was set up to look into the sort of esoteric sort of magics and things like that, and sort of what was going on with stuff. They looked into a lot of grimoires and different things like that, and Book of Enoch and all those kind of books. Yeah, those. Anyway, so my great grandmother, she was a founder member of that. Her husband was high up in the Masons at the time. He was setting up a library of the occult for the Masons, and then fell out with them and kept the books. So they've kind of been around as well. I mean, they're in terrible mess because, you know, they're 150 to 200 years old and they've been traveling around the world. So they're in a mess, but there's something about them that's quite interesting. But a lot of them really dark, very dark stuff. Yeah. But anyway, so the Golden Dawn, one of the other founder members of that was Aleister Crowley. You've encountered Aleister.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, you've obviously encountered him, haven't you?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, and he was obviously into some really dark sex magic stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that was also part. They did kick him out.
There's no question. I mean, there's no question at all. These secret societies, particularly the male fraternal secret societies, are totally sex magic is embedded in all of that.
Yeah, but it's interesting. So, I mean, this has just all been coming to me rather than actually being told it. There is a lot of stuff I've actually been told because, like I say, family of hoarders, you know, it's amazing what's been kept. But my great grandmother, I mean, I've seen photos of her, incredibly powerful woman. But I'm sensing that she had one of these implants and allowed herself to be experimented on. And it was all through it was anal sex, I'm guessing. And yeah, so it was like, why would she? But I'm pretty certain that was the case. And I've realized about it in my family, but I don't know.
I think there's no question too that we all have gotten this far and got to the point where we realized, on one hand, where we were hit the hardest, which was in our sexual power.
Yeah,
that's also where our power is. So I think it's a great subject to be talking about, especially with your experience with the implants and the successful removal of implants, not just by you, but by the client that you're working on, which, like you said, is the best way. So for those who had questions out there, you know, they're asking the question, how do you know if you have one? And I would just say, you can add to this, but I would just say, sooner or later, we're all going to be at a point of total self-sufficiency. And I've learned in working with Morgan, you know, as a patient, basically, the value of talking to my own being, talking to my body, scanning my own body. We can find out anything we want about ourselves. Or you can go to a practitioner like Gillian.
Do you want me to do a bit with this at the moment, actually, because it might help? Since I've put this stuff out, it might be helpful to give somebody a bit of support with it.
Yes. You want to,
and just in terms of how you sense them, because so that we'll start with anything here. So the implants in the skull, basically just look inside the skull, and it's basically like a sort of, remember those lovely without the flowers on them, remember the I suppose the Olympic swimmers. I always sort of think of them, they're like the Olympic swimmers. I've forgotten what they're called. Swimming caps or whatever they are. But it lines the inside of the skull, so it's like almost like a membrane. Just feel inside there, and if you can feel something that doesn't feel like you, when I say feel, sorry, I sense inside there, because feeling may not be your primary sense. So sense in there. You might see or feel, you may even taste or smell it, and something there that feels like you, or you might just have that sense of knowing. just ask your body, is this me? And you'll get a yes or a no. And then really bring that into your awareness, and then just sense it dissolving. So if you're a seer, just see it dissolving. If you're a feeler, just feel it dissolving. And please do remember, you're in charge here. This is your body. This is one of the most fundamental universal laws that I know of. The body that you're in, it only belongs to the soul that chose it, nobody else. So it's one of the easiest ways to clear anything else out. Just make sure you occupy your body fully, because there's no space for anything else, and nothing else has tenure there. They might try and sneak their way in, but you can't, nothing can get in. So just sense it just dissolving. And maybe just give a few thumbs up or something once you feel like that's cleared. This will probably be a bit like dandelion roots. If you live in a country that you don't have dandelions, they're bright yellow flowers that come out from this time of year through the year. They're really pretty, but they are thugs, and anywhere that they're not meant to be growing. They put huge big tapers down, and so you can pull them out, and you'll always leave a bit, and they'll grow from that. But if you keep pulling them out and keep pulling them out, eventually the bit that gets left behind gets weakened and it can't regrow. You kind of need to keep doing that with these implants. So just keep clearing them as much as you need to. So maybe just send I'm not checking comments, so maybe just send a comment to Todd if there's anybody. Are you seeing any got it? Or
let me see. Well, I got some thumbs up. Let's see. Always seems to just move in location. Deep rooted. Thumbs up. Thumbs up.
Yeah. So don't worry about it. It can't actually run away from you. This cannot run away from you. It's you're in charge of it. It's your body. Yeah. So literally just observe it dissolving.
I think that's.
And then, yeah. I'm going to just quickly so the next one to just check with, it's at the base of the spine, and it's just like I said, it's at where the spine comes down, and then it steps and then goes into the tailbone. You'll feel if there's something there, you'll feel it might be sort of z, or it might just be dull ache, or it might be I'm doing my best to tune in actually what I'm getting from you guys. Believe it or not, I'm actually just tuning into you. If I forgot any way to get to be able to tune into you, I'm just checking with anybody that's willing for me to tune into you. So sometimes it can feel warmer, sometimes it can feel sort of a dull ache, sometimes it can just feel sort of almost like vibratory. Again, it's the same thing. Just check, does this feel like yours? It's of your body. And the same thing, just dissolve it. Same thing. So either see it or feel it or smell it, taste it, or hear it dissolving. And keep reminding yourself that you are the only sovereign being that has any power over this body that you're in.
That's right.
Yeah, and then you do the same for the one if you've got one at the top of your. If there's one at the base of the spine, you're likely to have one at the top of your spine. Most likely, if you've got the ones on the base of your spine, you're likely to carry a lot of sexual power. Once you clear them, you'll start suddenly feeling energy flowing that you're not used to. So just be okay with that, because it's yours.
I'm not saying nothing.
No, I didn't. I wasn't saying to anybody in particular, but anyway.
I'm just saying. I know. No. Yeah, this is really important. I can tell you, I know for a fact I had them, and I just know. I mean, and I know many other people too. Somebody asked a question. I'd like to know what having the implants. So you covered this a little bit, but let's go back to it. I would like to know what having the implants what would that cause in our lives when we have them or as we've had them, and why would we want them cleared? It's the same question. But I mean, basically,
Well, you can't source your own sexual power. You can't actually. I mean, this is our most fundamental power, and you can't source it any longer. It's basically being fed something else, or it's been shut off. It's not fun.
Either shut off or somebody's taking it, is what you said earlier.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Yes. So, but it'll appear like it's up for grabs, but I'm sensing there is more of a pattern to it than that. So you'll get people coming into your life, and it's just like you're powerless to say no to them, and it's crazy. Yeah. It's been interesting for me because I've never had a concept of sexuality like, you know, the way I've been sort of taught about sexuality in our culture is just horrific, absolutely horrific. You know, this whole thing about go out and see if you can catch somebody and have sex with them. It's like, or, you know, if they're nice to you, you'll give them sex. I mean, it's just prey predator stuff. It's horrible. Sure. Instead of actually finding another whole person and being with them.
It's a you know, fuck first, then try to become friends. Kind of society, right?
Well, it's worse than that, I think, because but we're taught it's a completely disempowered model.
But we're breaking out of it now. We're breaking out of it now because of people like you. And somebody else brings up the point too. Susan Marie, she says, we're now embodying that. As we are now embodying that which we are, can we not clear any and all interference recorded from any experience from the inception of the light entering the soul, etc.? So, yeah, I mean, I think that's why we discuss these things and why we share these things, because at least in my opinion, you know, these processes, the modalities, you know, the teachers, whatever, I see more people activated and therefore healed by conversations when someone like you just explains to people, you know, this is what I experienced in my life. This is what's been given to me. This is what I do. Just the conveyance of that information through the throat chakra to me from your heart is what activates and heals people. It's almost like we don't have to, what did you say earlier? You don't have to know everything. You don't have to have it explained to you. You know, I know I had a little visit a couple nights ago. I talked about these 4 different energies came into the room, and it was a little bit, you know, it was a little bit scary, which I don't get scared, but they were telling me that. They were telling me, and eventually I understood that it was all pure love, but they were saying, you don't need to know what's happening. We're giving you code. We're invoking memories in you. And I did start seeing all these different images from past civilizations and stuff like that. But they were just telling me, you don't need to know. We're just turning you on, basically. I'm like, all right, plug me in.
So there's loads of stuff like that with me, and it's what I think I'm saying think consciously. I think I'm here basically to sort of connect people and sort of point them in the right direction. Can I just give a quick hint as far as really something that is super supportive in terms of if anybody is getting messed around with, the easiest way is just come into your body. I mean, really, really fully occupy your body. And the easiest way I've found to do that is just imagine yourself as a funny shaped vase and then just fill yourself with the liquid essence of whatever your name is. And that name being the soul that chose the body when they came in. Yeah. If you can really, and that means filling every cell and every space between every cell. Yeah. It includes filling the urine in your bladder. It includes filling the air in your lungs, because, okay, you might be letting them go, but it needs to fill every single space, because otherwise things hide in those spaces. But once you do that and learn really to be embodied all the time, there's no space for anything. I've seen loads of people teach all sorts of different ways of clearing things out, you know, casting them out and commanding them out and all stuff like that. It just doesn't work as far as I can see. But if you're really occupying, there's just no space for anything. If that fails, my father, the week before he died, I just have a brilliant gift from him. It was somebody trying to help, and he didn't have not a lot of time, and he knew that. And basically they were taking up time, and he just said, "Tell the fucker to fuck off." And I find that such a useful thing. It's like, oh, you know, because honestly, sometimes it's just like they're just taking up time, and that, you know, just tell them back to fuck off.
Yeah, no, I did that 3 or 4 nights ago. That something came in, and that hasn't really ever happened in a long time. And something came in, and it got like right in my face, the energy, and I was like, you know what? I'm not saying I don't like this, but I don't like this, and I'm not comfortable. You know, you need to go, and they'll go. Whatever it is goes. You know?
Yeah.
But I do agree too with what you said at the beginning, which I think is very important. A lot of things you said are very important, and one of them is when you made the reference to your lineage. You know, whatever it may be, all of us are the same, and whatever it is out there, we have to integrate and equalize with each and everything out there because it's all a part of us. Or we're going to be, you know, we're going to be stuck, and we don't want to do that. So I really love what you said there. And the other thing that I find real encouraging about this conversation is, you know, being that I'm in a divine conscious union, we've taken this path of celibacy onto union and so on. You know, we progress from there, but it is a totally different trip. It's a sacred sexual vibrational journey that that I believe is opening up to everyone in the collective as a result of this type of work, the implants being cleared, the awareness that they were there, and all that stuff. It's all going away. So this is the extraordinary part of it, not just in the non-physical, but in the physicality in these bodies that we carry, because it's going to be huge. This is huge magic.
Yeah, I'm hoping things are going to start shifting, but at the moment it's really tricky for people to go and find somebody to work around sexuality that isn't founded on them, you know, working on the model of prey and predator. You know, most of the sort of sexual stuff that I see out there, it's all about how to get more sex and to get more pleasure, to have it longer. So, but she's not founded securely at all.
Well,
you know,
one thing
out there to sort of say, you know, you've just casually said about, you know, consciously choosing celibacy.
Yeah.
But it's not many people that have actually cottoned on to, actually, this is quite important.
It is. It is. I'm telling you, it's like, Morgan and I have been together 3 times. 3 times she's come to the States, and this will be the 4th time. From this time, we won't be separated, but each time there's been a progression. So the first, you know, the first trip, 10, 12 weeks, we slept together every night. We retained our celibacy, you know, I mean, and then we got married the second trip, and still there was no like, oh, we're married now. Everything was done in the time that it was meant to be done, and continues to be. And I say we're just this far along, and it's been incredible. But I see this happening for the entire world, because this is the root of our power, is our sexual energy. Yeah. But one thing you did say too, you don't see a lot of people out there that are, from a practitioner standpoint, that, you know, they're still in that loop of the predator victim. Okay, but one thing that you, yeah. But one thing that you do as a living example, and I think this applies now to all practitioners, because we're all healers. Physician, heal thyself, you know, is that what you said about leading them to heal it, leading them to remove it themselves, allowing them to do it, let them see it, feel it, whatever, and have them do it. And I would also put a guess out there that you probably don't see your clients more than 2 or 3 times, if even that many times.
Sometimes it really depends. There's definitely been some who've come and worked with me as students. So it's like sort of basically, yeah. I also teach how to, you know, but work in. But they will also know. Yeah, sometimes I have. There's certainly one person that has come and worked with me over years, because they basically, I'm sure we've got a soul contract. So
you're empowering, but you're empowering your clients. Is what you're doing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because
you're empowering them, and it's not like the old school, which has kind of gone away now. So my only point there is that, to take your advice, is if you do seek somebody out, that would be a couple of traits that you'd want to look for, which is them showing you how to do it for yourself, number one. And number two, not trying to lock you in on come back next week, come back next week, come back next week in some long-term relationship.
No, because there's no point. I mean, it's funny. I was thinking about that the other day with the whole money thing. It's just, I don't understand this kind of addiction to money. And then this kind of, because basically people are just looking for their next hit with it instead of, you know, and they're looking for their next hit from others. And no, it's like, I always get enough to support me.
Yeah. That's how it's working.
Well, that's still here, and I've never, you know, I've never sunk, you know, sort of financially, and now
let me ask you, because we've gone over quite a bit. I hope you don't mind.
Sorry. Sorry.
No, I'm okay with it. But now, do you work with people online? Do you want to work? Okay.
Yeah, I do.
The reason I'm saying that. The reason I'm saying that, because, you know, we've done about 1,000 episodes of this show, and I can tell you when you're going to get a bunch of messages. I can tell you that if you're open to expanding awareness of what you do and working with people and assisting them as you've been doing, you just need to say it right now and tell people how they can contact you, where they can find you. Because I can promise you, you're going to get a whole bunch of messages and a whole bunch of business.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's never about the money, because obviously we need to pay bills. But to be honest, I know part of my real focus is get this stuff out there because it's important, and especially at the moment, it's so important. I've never seen such a flip at the moment. So yes, I do.
They want you to. They're saying, "Where's the link?" So why don't we do this? Tell us where to find you. Go ahead.
My website is, and I've got big website shame going on at the moment because it's desperately needing. It's a way to contact me. So that's at www.sacred-touch.co.uk.
Sacred hyphen. Then what? Touch?
So sacred-touch.co.uk.
.co.uk.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to ask you to put that, or can somebody put that that URL address that's on the screen? Could you put it in the comments? And you might want to do that too as well, Gillian. Just to make sure.
Sorry, I haven't worked out how to do comments at the moment. Sorry, I'm not.
No. I just mean whenever the show's over, just go into the show and then put it in the comments. I think that'd be a great idea.
My email, but my email is notoriously it'll disappear into spam sometimes. So if you want to contact me by email, please do. The other thing I would do is follow me on Facebook. Because I am definitely doing more live feeds and I'm sharing more there.
Okay.
So do follow me on Facebook.
There we go. Thank you, Susan Marie. She just put up the, well, so did Jennifer Peters. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I would just say you might want to get an answering machine because I can feel it. You're going to get a bunch of calls. So, and that's great. That's what this is all about. That's what it's all about. So we're very happy to support that, you and others. And I love the conversation. We'll have to do it again. We can talk about so many different things. But I do think this is a very vital subject right now, and that is the clearing of the sexual energetic blockages, and therefore what comes with that, which is the incredible power that we've all been missing for so long. You know, it's exciting conversation. I appreciate you.
Yeah, I'll try and make sure I do a live feed on the embodiment one, and also on clearing blocks. I'm just going to call them blocks. I think a lot of these words are very, start talking about entities and things like that.
Right. What do you mean? What do you mean by the embodying part? Say that again.
Embodying basically just what I was saying about make sure if you know how to get embodied, so that basically you're not having to deal with all of the nonsense.
I think that's a great subject. I think maybe we should do another episode if you're up for it in, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks, and maybe cover that. You know, have a section or just have a part on that where you just take everybody through it, and then maybe a couple other things. You know.
Yeah, but if I do live feeds, if people follow me on Facebook, then they can get them there as well.
Yeah.
And then
So that's on your personal page on Facebook, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So pick me up.
That'll work. That'll work. I will reach out to you. You take care. Thank you so much for sharing space with us and honoring us with your presence. We'll be back in, let me see, what time is it? 10, 11, we'll be back in 2.5 hours with a show with a gentleman by the name of Carl Schwartz. He's a musician, and I don't know what's going to happen, but we never do anyway. I'll see you later.
And Todd, thank you so much for the work you do, because it's amazing. And I thank you particularly for your laugh, because it's hilarious.
All right. All right.
Cheers.
Take care.
You take care. Bye.